First of all, I would like to thank Ajahn for coming to Taiping to share the Dharma with us. We are really appreciate it. My question is, so as just now you mentioned, go back to the forest that you love. So nowadays, as lay people, we can hardly imagine the life of a forest monk. So maybe Ajahn can tell us or give us a glimpse on the forest tradition and why is it so important that we have to maintain this tradition?
Well, I'm trying to just think in a way, speak in a way which is where you understand that the principles of what we're doing, even when you withdraw to the forest or you live in the monk's life, how it's also somehow bound up with what you're doing. We have to take this view that the Dharma is essentially one teaching, right? And so, if we understand that, again, we're all seeking freedom, we're all seeking happiness, a lot of what I was talking about was to do with eliminating these unwholesome actions or tendencies. So that's the first thing. I mean, that's the advantage of being part of the Sangha, is that we have, if I say, to fulfill the precepts or to live a virtuous life, we have very many more guidelines which will help us keep away from craving. So that's the first thing. I start with just being a bhikkhu. Why be a bhikkhu? What's the point and why is it important? It's just very, very supportive. No one's inviting me out to go drinking. No one's inviting me out to indulge in my sensual cravings. I've no money, so I don't have any financial dealings or potential for corruption, or I don't have to lie. Because there's just nothing, I can just be very honest about what I'm doing. So it's so supportive. In the Buddha's day, of course, when you left society, left the village, it didn't take very long before you're in the forest. I mean, they're basically India, Thailand, Burma. It was just Malaysia, which is forest. These towns and cities were just tiny places, linked maybe by a track between them or between big cities, what would be called a highway. But even the highway, be a dirt track. So leaving family life, leaving the village life or the any kind of city, very quickly you were in the forest, and that's where the samanas, those that had left both the kind of religious institutions of Brahmanism and also the kind of sensual pursuit of family life, they all ended up in the forest. Now the forest is what is the forest? Basically nature. It means nature. What do you have? You have trees, you have mountains, you have streams, you have animals. So one is that those are just really nice things. Why are they nice? Streams, mountains, nature, trees, animals. They're very, very natural. They're very, very soothing. You don't crave them. You don't see a tree and think, I want to cut that down and take it to my hut. You don't hear the gibbon calling and think, I want to catch that gibbon and bring it, tie it up on my porch. Then I can see it. You're just happy to have it there. And it's all bigger than you. You feel very small. You feel very, just part of nature, very, in a way, insignificant. When you're living in nature, you're affected by the environment. Right now, Thailand is completely, all over the country, is forest fires. It's very dry, there's a burning season. The forests are dry, the forests burn. When the rainy season is very wet, you have leeches here. It's damp. It floods, the road gets washed away. So the limitations or the fragility of this human body becomes very apparent very quickly. Last week, one night was 14 degrees centigrade, 14. That's quite cold, especially for Malaysia. Malaysians don't like that. And so we don't have very warm clothes. So you feel it, In a way, it's a little bit of dukkha, but in another way, you feel very alive, very present, very real. You're feeling it. And Buddhism is about Vedana, it's about feeling. Sukha Vedana, Dukkha Vedana, pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings. And the Buddha said, the Dhamma is Paccatang Vedittabho Vinyuhiti. This Dhamma should be experienced, but Vedyatabo means should be felt. So you have to be in touch with your feelings. So in the forest you can't just turn on the aircon or turn off the rain. And if there's a flood, there's a flood. And if the stream or the bridge gets washed away, gets washed away. There's fear. Last week, 2 monks who were living near each other had 2 leopards, one black leopard, one spotted leopard, just run past them. And those leopards weren't interested in the monks at all. They were just playing. They're a couple. They live in the area. We know they're there. They have been photographed on these camera traps, But it's quite a shock anyway. You see 2 leopards running past you, and then that night you're inevitably fearful. Or we have elephants walking around. So a little bit of fear in life is good. Again, what we're talking about is not getting lost in delusion, not thinking that everything's fine. We're thinking, tonight I could die. The Buddha encouraged us to think like that. Tonight a snake could bite me. I could get sudden stomach ailment, which could cause me to die. I could fall over a cliff or in a ravine or in a pit. Food is simple. The requisites are simple. And so life is simple. And then the mind can become more simple. We don't have a reception for mobile phones. If you want to make a call, you can do it. You have to walk up to the top of a mountain, find the signal and make a call. Now it's okay, but it helps. Because then in our daily life we don't have this technology. People can't come in and out easily. So that's really some of the advantages of living in a forest. So the question is, does everybody have to live in a forest? Is it? Not really. I just feel very lucky, and these days, as you know, there's less and less forests available, and it's hard to maintain a place like that. It's a bit of a kind of special setup, like having a forest hermitage or a jungle retreat place. And, actually this situation here is quite similar. It's just that it's much closer to the city. But it's set up on the hill, away, there's a gate, it's locked, nobody goes up there, the monks come down. And it's really beneficial. Today I was walking around, there's this huge rock, there's streams, there's gibbons, there's squirrels. It's really nice. There's very little traffic noise. It's the same principle as why do they want to live on SBS and not here? You say, it's so nice here, you could live here. No need to walk up and down, very comfortable, got aircon. Do you want to, Bante, come and live here? Yeah? All these people, yeah, Yeah, very easy. Get everyone come and visit you. Got broadband internet. You go. There's a teacher called Ajahn Siripanyo, one of our respected teachers, and he was in Bangkok and waiting to come to our hermitage, Dao Dam. It's about 5 or 6 years ago. But then he had some medical complication and he had to stay in Bangkok and be treated in a very good hospital. So he spent 3 weeks in Bangkok. And he was fine, and then he came to Dao Dam and he said, when he got to the forest, he felt this feeling of relief. And he was thinking about it, like what is it, say, about the city as opposed to the forest? And you could come up with many theories and ideas, but one of the things he said, and I'd never thought of it before, is he said, when you're in the city, especially Bangkok, he says, you're always looking at, say, non-organic matter or things which are dead. So we look around this room. Basically, there's nothing which is really alive in this room. So he'd been in this center in Bangkok and then driving to Top Hospital, which is almost like a hotel. This hospital is so good, so comfortable, and then driving back. But he said it's always dead. You're looking at concrete, you're looking at kind of fake wood floors, even real wood, it's been cut down, it's dead. Got electrical appliances, everything is dead. Everywhere you look, you don't see any life. So he said that's just sort of depressing or sort of not uplifting for the mind, even though you're not conscious of it. When you enter the forest and everything is alive, doesn't it make sense? Would you rather look at something that's dead or alive? You know, it makes sense. Alive is better than dead. And he said, you know, what struck him arriving in Taodam is that there's not a single straight line or a single plain surface, like a flat surface. Nature, okay, trees are pretty amazing. You've seen trees growing up. They're very, because they're looking for the sun, so it's like a kind of magnet drawing them to the light, pretty straight. But there's nothing straight like this. There's no right angles. It's always this beautiful, subtle bend, subtle curves in the bark, in the branches. Even a coconut tree, you know, if it's windy, it'll just... So he said, yeah, in Bangkok or in a city, it's right angles, squares, flat surfaces. So you're not getting this, you look at a wall, you don't have this depth of perspective, you don't have this three-dimensionality. Everything is... So his theory was that this is somehow kind of like dulling or depressing for our senses, because, say, if we just, you know, it's a theory, but take the view that humans today, we're essentially the same as we were 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 100,000 years ago. Homo sapiens, a modern man. So our brains, our minds, developed in caves, in forests, on islands, not wired, or not really developed or trained or to experience this kind of environment. So there's something very unnatural about it. So we've got used to it, and we've all grown up in cities. I grew up in London, big city. But it's almost like when you go to the forest, you have this feeling of like, yes, I've come home. It's just that simple. You've come home after all this wandering and feeling lost and in a slightly, not just unfamiliar, but almost threatening environment, because it's so unnatural and so it's so not what we were grown, you know, and what humans develop. So I think that's part of it as well, is that you feel this sense of ease and a sense of relief. You can put down the burden and some of these maybe deeper sort of sense of dukkha that comes with living in society, as well as simply kind of moving away from all your identity and all your usual, the kind of image or self-image around you. When you're in the forest, it's raining, it's cold, or even when it's not raining, cold, you're just there on a bamboo platform or in a hut with the gibbons. Nobody knows who you are. The monkeys don't care. They don't know. The rain doesn't care. Nobody calls your name because you're alone. So in terms of dropping the identification, the building up of the ego, the big me, even in the monastery, you don't have this sort of so much of the hierarchy. It's there, but we all share duties. Everyone has to be there. Basically, you're living like a community. So it's kind of simple. So anyway, these are just a few like ideas. There's many, many things I could say, talk about living in the forest. But the point is, you're not going to go there. It's not like, you're thinking, oh yeah, now I have to go to the forest to practice. It's not like that at all, you know. But try to take on the spirit of get nature into your lives. You're very lucky here in Malaysia. Compared to Thailand, Malaysia is like one big jungle. You know, even driving on the motorway, KL to Ipoh, Ipoh to Taiping, it's so green. Thailand, they've just managed to eliminate every tree. It's almost like a national campaign to free Thailand from trees. They're almost there. But even here, it's very nice. You land in KL from Bangkok, and you feel like you've landed in the jungle. And here, Taiping, it's very cute, you know, old kind of, still got a lot of nature around you. So take advantage of the nature, spend time in nature, spend time, you know, don't turn on the aircon some days, experience the heat, experience the cold. When it's raining, those of you that have roofs, go and stand next to the roof and bathe under the rain, like when you were kids, used to do that. It's fun in the pouring rain, when the rainwater's coming off the gutter. It's like in Taodam when it's raining, just bathing, or in the stream, we have streams, waterfalls. It just feels so natural, rather than going into this, 2-meter bathroom, turning on a tap, saying it's all smelly. So, you can do it. I mean, you feel it for yourself. Do lots of exercise, eat 1 meal a day. You can do that. You see, now it's puasa time. It's very good, We should all be very inspired. The spirit of Ramadan, the spirit of puasa, because it's very dharmic. Simplify your life. Come together as a community. Restrain yourself. Okay, you can say that generally turning towards God, but very much, I've met many Muslims who say this is the most important time of their year, where they come back to their priorities, focus on values, they hear the teachings, hear the Dhamma, listen to the Quran. So you don't need a forest for all of that. So you're creating the sense of the forest in your hearts. Stay off your phones, you see? You can do all of that, to take the spirit of the forest and try to bring it into your heart. It's all about letting go. Okay, probably enough.
Ajahn, you mentioned about the lifestyle in the forest, like those traditional monastic, usually it's in a forest. And then in the modern days, now we can know about the idea of engaged Buddhism, where they live in the city with a big organization, always busy and all that. So Ajahn, what's your view between these two extremes? Like those in the city, engaged Buddhism, and those are traditional monastic, living seclusion in the forest. What's your view on these two?
Well, my view on these two is that they're both, there they are. They both exist, They're two styles. I don't actually have to judge one or the other. I know for myself that I prefer the forest life. But if somebody would like to lead a more engaged life, then take up what the sort of spirit of engaged Buddhism, then that's fine. That person has to make that individual choice for themselves. It really depends on what they want in life. You have to be careful though. Sometimes engaged Buddhist monks soon become married Buddhist laymen.
I have two questions. The first one is on the contemplation of death. And rightfully, now is the moment where we are doing the Chengbing, or the offering to our ancestor, or the praying to the ancestor. Perhaps Ajahn can share the usual way of how people, perhaps in Thailand or in Malaysia, how we go about the right way on the Chengbing. Perhaps there will be the benefit for the rest of our audience today. And also the contemplation on death for ourselves, on the eventuality of the day when it comes, how we should go about doing or settling the thing. Perhaps Bhante can share on that. Thank you.
For me, I generally take all of these traditions, whether it's Puasa, Chengmeng, Christmas. In Thailand we have people come together in Thailand mainly like they call Songkran, the traditional Thai New Year, water throwing, water splashing. The important Buddhist days are not really family days, Visakha Puja, the entrance to the rains, or Magha Puja. But anyway, all of these types of days, for me, they're really more about the family that's gathering in a way, rather than the ancestors. The ancestors are more the object or the focal point which brings the family together. So if you ask me, well, what's the correct way to do it? In a sense, I can't really say. It's a bit like this. What do I think of, forest Buddhism and engaged Buddhism? And people just, doing it in the traditional way. I guess the important thing is to cultivate the spirit of harmony and then bring to mind the departed, which basically, hopefully, creates a sense of well-being and a sense of gratitude and a sense of loving kindness and a sense of wanting them to be well. And it's a shared feeling amongst those family members. It's very sweet. Today you go there and there's older people, the parents and the kids. Some have brooms and I guess they're cleaning, and the kids are a bit bored, but they're all there, and it's a very sweet scene. At the end, in a short while, we might do the sharing of merits. It's often called Uddisana. And it's usually translated as to share the merits. In Thai you say Utthit Hai, which means, Utthit is this word, to share, or it's usually understood. And Hai means for that person. So with this, in Thailand you would say, the Cheng Meng is to Utthit Hai, is to do something for them and dedicate the merits. But one of my friends, a monk, recently explained to me that Uttisa, the meaning of it, has this sense of to lift up, or to show, or to see from above, or to hold high. And Dissa is this seeing, like right view. Ditti is right view, so Dissa is viewing. So Uttisana, the sharing of merits, really means lifting up this thing, this good action, to be seen. So really, what it means is that when you say share the merits with your departed ancestors, you're saying, here, grandpa, grandmother, look at what we're doing. See this good action we're doing. And so it serves as a tool, as a skillful means for families to come together, kind of clean the family kind of shrine, and then to show, to say, look, wherever you are, see this good action we're doing. And it serves then to cultivate in that family the sense of, the importance of maintaining the values that the ancestors held. And that's a very Buddhist principle. The Buddha taught that if a society maintains the old traditions and does not abandon them and doesn't change and make new traditions, then that society will last a long time. So in Buddhism, we have that principle of carrying on the traditions of our forefathers. In the Sangha, it would mean like maintaining the traditions of the old Ajahns and respecting the Vinaya rules and not making new rules. Then it will last a long time. So with this Cheng Meng, what's the spirit? You should be thinking about what are the values, what are the teachings, what did we learn from our grandparents, great-grandparents. Maybe it's a time for the older ones to tell stories of what these people did or said, or anecdotes. And then it can be valuable. But personally, because I have no direct insight into what actually happens and where these ancestors are and how the transmission takes place, and whether there's really a bank down there or up there where you can cash in your paper money. So you can't take it that seriously because we don't really know. Take the principle is, or the externals are just the symbols. To me, what it implies is that you come together and not honor the dead, but to maintain, to keep alive the things that they taught. That's the point. And to pass it on. You're looking after the inheritance, the true inheritance for next generations. So that's the same, whether it's here, whether it's Thai style, whether it's, in India, whatever, any type of dedication of merits, it really should be using them as a concept, as an object, to say, look at this good action, this is what we're doing, and then reflecting on the good things that they taught you, and having gratitude. Because all of these things are emotions. So gratitude, if you cultivate gratitude in one area, like regarding your ancestors, basically you have the spirit of gratitude in your heart. And gratitude, I think, is often not really understood well enough. A heart of gratitude is a very, very well protected heart or mind. Because it means that anything that happens to you, if you can say, okay, whatever that person says to me, I can always find something to be grateful to them for. Whatever the world, whatever the blows, like whatever COVID, deals, whatever blows they deal us, there's things we can be grateful for. So it's a way of establishing the mind where you can cope with dukkha very, very well. You don't even experience it so much. So for example, Shengmeng, anything to do with ancestors, I would say the key principle is gratitude. And once you have gratitude, you relate to your parents nicer, you can even be grateful to your children, and grateful to people you don't know. I mean, everything that we're using or experience in life comes somehow from somebody else. Now we feel these days, well, you pay for it. You don't need to be grateful. You order the flooring, the guy delivers it, you pay. Why should you be grateful? He got the money, you get the... But there's nothing stopping you from being grateful. There's nothing saying, why can't you just think, oh, thank you to that guy for coming, thank you to the company that makes it, and in a sense, thank you and apologies to all the animals that died in the transportation. Even vegetarian food comes with a cost. Something to be grateful for, something to be apologetic for. We can't live on this planet without some kind of interaction and interchange. So something like Chengmeng can help. It broadens our perspective, takes us away from this kind of thinking about our own little world, and helps us to feel just one insignificant part of a much bigger universe. So that for me is the value. And what was the second question again?
I haven't asked the second question. But further to that, Bhante, is there like a best burial method or way in a Buddhist practice?
Best burial method? Yeah. Or way? What's the best burial method? Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. Make sure it's deep enough so that the dogs don't come. One of the things I like about Buddhism is we really don't get into these kind of questions. It's a bit like the one about engaged Buddhism and forest Buddhism. Basically in Buddhism, the best way is whatever works best. Whatever's most convenient, whatever fits with the society, the norms and conventions of that society. So if there's lots of land, then, the best burial might be a big, huge burial and do something nice. But if we're in, Taiping or KL, the best burial is the smallest one, or the best burial is no burial. Let's move to cremations. We have to be practical. Luckily, the Buddha literally does not get into social conventions. If you ask me about burials, weddings, baby blessings, chants, this isn't really part of the original or the Buddha's teachings. These have all, you have to understand these as part of the cultural umbrella of Buddhism. And once we understand that, everything that's in that cultural umbrella, generally we can say it has to be something which has been created by people, by society, later than the Buddha, sometimes in line with certain principles or with certain symbolic meaning, in line with the Dhamma, but generally for some kind of social, practical reason. And just go with it. The best type of burial, or cremation or funeral is the one that all the children agree on, because you don't want arguing during a cremation. You know what I mean? Very important that the family agrees, everyone's happy, you can make compromises. That's the best burial, when everyone feels that was good. So that's how I always approach all of these things. But you won't find it in any sutta or any Buddhist teaching, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you, Ajahn. Okay, this is the second question. It seems that in the Thai forest tradition, going on a tudong or the dutanga is a common practice for monks. For a forest monk who is already practicing and living in the forest, how does going on a tudong helps in his spiritual cultivation?
Okay, I'll try and answer a bit in brief, and a little bit first technical definition is because the word in Thai tudong comes from the word dutanga, which means it's like the shaking off of defilements, the shaking off of unwholesome tendencies. And there are certain practices which are tudong practices, which we do here, for example, eating in the bowl, going on alms round, eating one meal a day, if you do these practices, not lying down. So you can do these practices in the forest. Now, in Thai there's an expression which we now translate to English as to go on tudong. And in Thai it's even dern tudong, which means walking on tudong. In a way, we should really call that jarik or jarika. In Pali means wandering. And usually it's translated into English as the Blessed One went on a wandering tour. So basically traveling around, walking around. And so it became a tradition in the old days that the monks who were forest monks would often then go and seek out other teachers rather than simply staying in their monasteries. And so in order to do that, they had to walk because there weren't vehicles, there weren't trains, there weren't cars, or they weren't available, easily available. So they would walk. And as they walked in different forest areas, through the forests, then inevitably they were able to experience some of the things I was talking about just now. You don't have a hut. You don't have the comforts of your sort of regular sponsors or your regular food. Your robes get dirty. You can't just go to the washing facilities, boil up some water and wash your robes. You have to put up with a bit of dirt and grime. You might, you lack certain requisites. And then in those places, through the forest, there would be more wild animals. If you're like me, you get lost, and those are challenges. So living in a forest or even in a city monastery, practicing well, that's great. You don't have to go on tudong at all. But it's just sometimes nice to, in those days, it was nice to walk and visit different teachers. These days, we don't need to go on this kind of walking tour. I just completed a 21-day walk with some monks through some 4 different national parks. We don't have to do it. But again, it gets you out. It's like the equivalent of getting out of the house. On the weekends you say to the kids, come on, get out of the house, go and do something different, or go, outstation, go to the countryside. Change your environment, get out of your comfort zones, be a bit challenged. And for a group it's very bonding, like going on a hike or going on a trip together. Experience different cultures. We had ethnic Mon, Thai, Lao, who were in Burma before, ethnic Burmese. There's even Nepali citizens living in Thailand on the Burmese border. They used to work in tin mines. They came over after the war and then they stayed on. So you broaden your horizons, you see new things. And it's not in the same way that when you go on holiday, you see this and that. This is more like seeing and trying to understand culture, understand how society works a little bit, understanding the environment, and then also sharing a little bit. You don't have to give Dhamma talks to share the Dhamma. You just walk, and then in the morning you go on alms round. People are so happy to see you, and give dana to this group of monks who are just walking. Without this dana, they don't have food. Wow, we can feed you. So it's also an offering. So yeah, there are many reasons why it's nice to go on the walking tudong, as opposed to just staying in the monastery and practicing quietly. Also, to be honest, people get restless, and restlessness is good to deal with internally, but sometimes the best way to deal with it is to just take a break, have a change of scene, and refresh yourself and come back. And then when you come back, you're so happy to be back in your monastery. It's like, oh, I've got so nice, got this, that, It's like when you come home to your bed after a long day or a late night. It's fun to go out. It's great to come home, have your bed. So it develops appreciation then for what you've got, But you also simplify things. It's very nice, like walking 21 days with just this, literally, and bowl, and this, what we call glot mosquito net. Everywhere you get to, you just put up a string, put up the net, put out your mat on the floor, and just sleep there. And you feel, I often call the floor, this is the Buddha's mattress. If it was good enough for the Buddha, the fully enlightened Blessed One, well then we should sleep on it as well, and feel that same feeling. And that feeling of freedom that comes when nobody knows where you are, there's all these burdens don't follow you, you know, if you're living in a monastery, especially if you're the abbot, everywhere you look, there's a broken pipe, that needs repainting, this bhikkhu's got problems again. Yeah. So you just got to get away from it and get a break, right? So there's many reasons, from the lofty spiritual to the more practical, where it's great to get away. So anyway, I could, in a way, talk for a long time about it, but that gives you a bit of an idea.